From her early days at Much Music to earning 2 Geminis and a spot in the Canadian Broadcasters Hall of Fame, our next guest has been a media trailblazer for decades. Please welcome the incredible Denise Donlon in so many ways. This is such an honor. As soon as they talked about this book, I was like, yes, yes, yes. And you had to vet this bad boy down. 2 years.
I had to vet a little, yeah. No, it was 1,200 pages at the beginning.
And 2 years in the making.
2 years, every day like this. I had to write to know what to write, right?
Yeah.
To actually figure out what was actually going to make it in the book. Thank God I had a great editor. She'd say things like, perhaps you should consider deleting this entire chapter.
I know. And you're like, it's my baby.
It's my baby.
And like, look at all these reviews. You know, friends in high places. Margaret Atwood giving it the thumbs up. Jim Cuddy, Alan Doyle, David Usher, Gordon Pinson, Molly Johnson, and on and on.
With Joseph Boyd, and they gave me hot flashes. I have to say, a couple of these came in. I was like, oh.
And I love the way it all starts out. I felt like I was reading my own life growing up, being super tall. I mean, for you, it was with brothers. With me, it was with sisters, and in a strict, you know, under a strict father's rule.
Yep.
And you talk about really how you just pushed through and persevered despite your self-doubts, and you carried that throughout your career, breaking through glass ceilings. You know, president of Sony Music Canada. So, what for you was the toughest thing to discuss?
To discuss in the book?
Yeah. Was it growing up?
Yeah, it was growing up, and then, of course, I had to go back and talk about my assault, right? Which I had buried and buried and buried for forever. And when the whole Jian Ghomeshi thing started to happen, it sent me right back. And, but what I learned from that is that, you know, innocent until proven guilty. I get that the bar is high, and the bar should be high in our judicial system. But when you look at the numbers, you know, 1,000 cases of assault and only 3 convictions, it's a fail in Canada. We have to do better, because we can't be a voice for the powerless in other parts of the world unless we, you know, respect people better here and you know, raise the bar for compassion and for vigilance, for sure.
Which you have done through your philanthropic work and charities, as well as, you know, in the corporate world, which seems impossible. You've always used your power and your platform for good rather than evil, and it's been difficult to get where you got. Let's talk about those days rather in Much Music when it was a startup station and they were doing revolutionary things. MTV was this glossy, shiny penny, and Much Music was quite the opposite. And you talk about some of the interviews. I love your anecdotes. Let's start with, where do we go? Let's start with Moses Znaimer.
Moses.
Yeah, because he tried to get under your skin, which is what he would do, to see what you're made of.
Right, to see whether or not, because John Martin brought me in, and he said, well, what are you going to do when this doesn't work out in 3 months? And I went, when? Not if, when? And sometimes you just find your own power, even though you don't think you have any. And I said, well, I guess I don't think I'm unemployable. I just come off a big tour with the head pins, a slide-it-in tour of Europe with the head pins. So, you know, you learn as you go. You learn resilience.
Yeah, and then you went, of course, from on-air up the ranks, which was very common at the time at City. They were the only ones where you'd have a receptionist one day and then on-air talent or executive the next.
Exactly.
You also tell a great story about Stevie Wonder with 1 hour to prep for the icon.
Yeah. It was the first time I'd ever done a live interview on Much Music, because I was doing rock flash, you know, 2-minute bites where you'd jump on the phone and try and figure out what to say in the next interview. And Stevie Wonder phoned, like to my phone, which is crazy. And they said, oh, he's been watching all day and he wants to come in. I'm like, watching? It's Stevie Wonder? I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, we couldn't find any other VJs, so John Martin just said, okay, you're up. And so the first time I did a live interview was with Stevie Wonder. He was fantastic. And it was that moment when, you know how amazing it is when you actually connect with somebody that you admire, like the legendary Stevie Wonder? It's magic. And from that time on, you're always looking for that magic. You're always looking for it.
So many magical moments, real moments. You have to read it about Sting, Annie Lennox, one of my favorites. It goes on, and so many lessons we can all use. Thank you so much for being brave enough to share them with us. Come back anytime.
So thank you.
I always looked up to you for so many ways. I'm like, she's tall. She made it. And then you went on and broke through so many glass ceilings. So thank you so much for being a role model.
It's so my pleasure. Funny book, I'm told.
It is. It is. It's funny. It's thought-provoking. It's got it all, just as you do. Thank you so much. Right now, we're throwing things over to Tam. Make sure you pick this up. There's actually a link at breakfasttelevision.ca. It's called Fearless as Possible. Over to you, Tam.